Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to part two of our federal panels that we're doing as a virtual event. Once again, recognizing that travel, we were unclear on how travel was going to go for many folks from both the federal and state levels. And we recognize that even many states do have travel restrictions right now. We wanted them to have the benefit of being able to participate in hear from all of you today. We did take this to a virtual event. After the fact, all of the folks that registered will get a copy of will get a link to the presentations, the recording, and have an opportunity to look at that after the fact also. We want to begin by thanking all of our participants and panelists today for joining us. This is always an interactive and interesting discussion with two of the organizations that has the greatest impact or that have the greatest impact on state and local programs today. I'm going to begin by doing the introductions for all of our participants. Then we're going to start with OTED and then move to over to the Integrated Food Safety Systems group and kind of go in that order. Once again, let me begin by some introductions. I'm going to start with Erik Mettler, who is Assistant Commissioner for Integrated Food Safety Systems in the FDA's Human Foods Program. In this role, he leads efforts to build a unified food safety system through strong partnerships across federal, state, local, tribal, and international entities. His office focuses on advancing FDA's public health mission through collaboration with stakeholders in government, industry, academia, and consumer groups. Previously, Mr. Mettler was the Assistant Commissioner for Partnerships and Policy in the Office of Regulatory Affairs, where he oversaw key initiatives related to policy development, strategic planning, and implementation of new regulations. He has also held senior leadership roles in the Office of Foods, Veterinary Medicine, Office of Foods and Veterinary Medicine, and the Center for Tobacco Products, contributing to agency-wide public health management strategies. Erik holds a master's degree in public health from Emory University and a master's in public administration from the University of New Mexico. Our second speakers, this is not going to be in the order we speak, but I do apologize for that. From Erik, we're going to go ahead and introduce Brooke Mullican, who is the Director of the Office of Training, Education, and Development, or OTED, as you all know. Brooke is a visionary training executive with over 20 years of experience in leading enterprise learning, talent development, and organizational transformation across federal agencies. As the Office Director of FDA's Office of Training, Education, and Development, she oversees national learning programs that train and certify more than 10,000 FDA and state regulatory professionals each year, supporting a mission-critical focus on building a well-trained, agile, and inspection-ready workforce. She has led the modernization of FDA's learning infrastructure, implementing the innovative performance-based learning models, virtual learning systems, and competency-driven curricula that strengthen, God, I can't talk this afternoon, the inspectorate's preparedness and effectiveness across all regulatory commodity areas. With a deep expertise in strategic planning, change management, and workforce analysis, she has driven measurable improvements in operational efficiency, leadership and development, and public health impact. Brooke is a collaborative, future-focused leader and is committed to aligning education strategy with mission priorities and driving excellence to the frontline inspection readiness and preparing the next generation of regulatory professionals to lead with confidence and competence. The next speaker I'm going to take an opportunity to introduce is Michelle Motsinger. Michelle is currently the Acting Director of the Office of Domestic Partnerships. In that role, she is overseeing the coordination with federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial public health agencies within the Human Foods Program. She also directs the Division of Domestic Partnerships Coordination and Integration, leading technical advisory efforts for programs such as Rapid Response Teams, Domestic Mutual Reliance, and various regulatory program standards, including MIFREPs, AFREPs, the Egg Regulatory Program Standards, and the PRPS. Previously, Michelle served as the Regulatory Program Standards Group Manager for the Division of Standards Implementation, providing leadership to various program standards. She began her FDA career as a MIFREP specialist, enhancing the federal-state collaboration and supporting state programs. Before joining FDA, Michelle worked at the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, managing food defense and standardization programs. She holds a Master in Science in Environmental Science from the University of Colorado and a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Health from Colorado State University. And last but not least, as I often say, the person that writes the checks at FDA to many of us and manages the checkbook, which I have to say, is a bit uncertain in these worlds, but she manages to do it unlike anyone else, is Wendy Campbell. Wendy is the Director of Domestic Partnerships and Domestic Partnership Investments in the Office of Domestic Partnerships at FDA. Wendy joined FDA in 2010 and the Office of Partnerships in 2011. Before FDA, she was the Food Defense Coordinator for the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and Principal Investigator for the RRT Cooperative Agreement. In other words, she has been in the same boat many of us have been in as the applicant for cooperative agreements also. She has been an instructor for the National Center for Biomedical Research and Training and a pharmaceutical laboratory chemist. Campbell holds a bachelor's and master's degrees in food science from North Carolina State University. And I have to pick on her. We need to help her update her bio. This by no means expresses the level of work that she does every day in her role. And so all of these folks are tremendous advocates and friends of our state and local programs. And we want to thank them again for participating. Thank all of you for joining us. And with that, we're going to start today with Brooke and then move into Erik's group with the integrated food safety systems. Oh, and we can't forget, for those of you that have not noticed, two of our friends are going to have their help office open at the AFTO conference, and go ahead and click on the QR code. There are a few spots left, but we do appreciate their willingness to do this. Opportunity to talk with them, whether it be about program standards, cooperative agreements and grants, or other concerns. A great opportunity to have a few minutes with Wendy and Michelle and have those direct discussions about what some of your individual questions or challenges might be. So we're very excited that they were willing to do that. And like I said, there's a few spots left. I think maybe 3 from what I heard this morning. So if you want one, you better get it reserved right now. So with that, let's go ahead and turn it over to Brooke. Brooke, welcome.
Thank you so much, Steve. And hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here. I feel very honored to be among all of you today. And so we're going to talk about OTED updates and projections as we look towards the end of 25 and moving into FY26. Next slide, please. So obviously, we all want to make sure that we have a well-trained inspectorate, and this is really the key to ensuring safe, high-quality products globally. And so our folks represent the agency working with industry to foster that compliance and corrective action. And, you know, it's really critical for us as we move forward as the Office of Training, Education, and Development to ensure that folks understand the criticality of training and that really is going to provide those clear expectations and guidance for compliance, corrective actions, reducing likelihood of costly recalls, product delays, reduces potential for inspection variability, and also, receive guidance in situations such as pre-operational review. And to the American public, obviously, we provide regulatory oversight with industry advancements. We strive to address crises faster in terms of our response time, work with industry to be in compliance with our laws and our regulations with each of you, and improve coverage of, our regulatory industries. And so we're going to talk today about some of the updates and advancements that we've made. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're trying to focus on is being very future focused, innovative, and agile, especially in the season that we're in. As you know, we have reorganized as of October 1 of 2024. I've held this position for a year and a half now, first as acting and then as permanent director. And we're really looking with you as our partners to be very future focused, streamlining our training for maximum impact. That's one of our goals post reorganization. Emphasizing technology. We've been working on, and with many of you, on virtual reality, AI-driven learning platforms, exploring machine learning, and really adaptive learning styles in concert with the next generation of learners. And that's something that we're really focused on. And we're also looking at having employees be efficiently and effectively, empowered to conduct their inspections independently, and making sure that they have the training that is needed, and also cost-effective training optimization so that we have our platforms that are on-site simulations, multimedia, mobile labs, and really exploring the universe of training and what that looks like. And we're really excited to continue our work with each of you in that future-focused manner. Next slide. One of the pieces of having that is we remain deeply committed to strengthening our collaborative partnership with AFDO through our cooperative agreement, recognizing this alliance is essential to ensuring our federal and state, local, tribal, territorial partners receive high-quality regulatory training that is truly aligned with our FDA mission and vision. And a quote that I really appreciate from Dr. McCary is the quote that he has on a well-trained inspectorate. It is vital to ensure the safety of our nation's food supply, especially with emerging public health concerns and the need for new approaches to food safety. What I like about this Venn diagram is well-trained regulators are dependent on the states, our associations, and us within the FDA agency, which is why cultivating a well-trained regulator through these collaborative partnerships is so critical. And another piece is embracing our constant state of change. It's never truly been more important than it is today, and I know we're all feeling that now. And the products that we regulate and the need of the public are evolving more quickly than ever. And training is at the forefront and a critical component of that collaborative partnership and need. Next slide, please. I'm going to spend a few moments here talking about the updates, our current FY25 projections, and then moving into current and forecasting for 26. And then I'll get into our modalities as well. So OTED has delivered approximately 67 courses virtually and in person related to human and animal foods, cooperative programs under the umbrella of milk, retail and shellfish, veterinary medicine, and produce. This number does not include our quarter 4 projections, which we currently have 28 courses slated for delivery. This will bring our number of programmatic training up towards an SLTT participation towards 95 to 100 courses this fiscal year related to the human and animal foods within FY25. We are projecting to complete well over 70% of our work for this fiscal year. And again, the large reason is because of the travel restrictions, as Steve alluded to, as to why we're conducting this virtually, that has impacted our abilities to train in person and also conduct certain courses where in person is required. The major changes for then moving into FY26 revolve around course modality. OTED is focused on taking a very conservative approach to course delivery, specifically where it comes to modality, and I'm going to explain why. Approximately 80% of all programmatic training will be virtual because that is what we are currently able and ready to deliver. OTED is also taking a holistic look at our course catalog and will be making decisions related to the course that lends to in-person modality. We're currently working with the Office of Domestic Partnerships within HFP to future forecast state training needs for FY26 and beyond. These efforts are progressing, and OTED will look to help supplement any training needs that our SLTT partners may present. In-person training status and which commodities are we going to be able to offer in person? And I know this is a question on all of your minds, so I'm going to get right to it. OTED is looking at some specific courses within the manufactured foods, produce, milk, retail foods, and veterinary medicine in the upcoming fiscal year to have in person. You know, just to be very frank, currently we're unable to do things without individual case-by-case travel exemption review. And so our current operational posture does require individual course exemptions. And we need to continue focusing on how we can get the courses that you need and what does that look like for in-person. And we are asking for your cooperation and support. And so we're going to be having those conversations as we move into 26 because we want to have all of the training and we want to provide more training. And so we're looking extensively at the work on OTED's portfolio, and we may be seeking additional support as we move forward. So anything in person at this time does require an individual case-by-case review up through the agency level. Next slide, please. Something we're very proud and excited about this year as we move into some of our accomplishments and updates is our academic partnership. This year, we were able to leverage an academic partnership with NC State and NASDA to create a collaborative learning opportunity. We started with an Introduction to Public Health Food Inspection course. It was delivered in the fall of 2024 and concluded this past winter. It is a three credit in-course, in-resident course that was actually at NC State, and it took a deep dive into the food procedures and practices. We had a panel with our commissioner and our previous Associate Commissioner of Investigations and Inspections, Michael Rogers, to talk, and as well with NASDA, NASDA's Joe Reardon, to talk about different food procedures and practices and talk about their experiences as they've grown up through the ranks of their careers. And it's also an opportunity to practice practical application through mock inspections and site visits. So we are working with NC State and NASDA to offer this potentially virtually and also leverage additional academic models. And so we will be exploring the option to scale this out even more after this summer. Right now, we're currently doing course improvement and review status. So this is something really exciting to help strengthen and expand the food safety talent pipeline. Next slide, please. Now we have a lot of really exciting partnership accomplishments that we want to thank you, many of you, for your work on. Over the past fiscal year, along with our partners, we've made huge strides in developing and delivering programmatic training that really helps support the evolving needs of our regulatory workforce. And so I'm going to go into each of these just briefly. We successfully delivered retail food safety training to our SLTT partners, ensuring timely and relevant education to address public health priorities in the retail sector. OTED launched FD215, the food detective game, which was a really innovative, interactive online tool that I know is quite popular with our newer generation of folks coming into the workforce as well, to ensure that it allows learners to engage in risk-based inspection scenarios in a gamified format, enhancing both learning engagement and practical applications. We've advanced a 2-year retail food safety initiative for SLT regulators in Guam and Saipan, ensuring equitable access to training and capacity building in underserved territories, which we were thrilled to be able to do this past year. We developed web-based training modules for produce and sprout safety, expanding our reach and modernizing delivery of high priority content for both new and experienced regulators. OTED provided critical support in shaping the regulatory and laboratory training system, RLTS, by contributing to the establishment of a quality and competency scoring process. This is really paving the way for a more standard outcome-driven training framework across the system. And one more I'd like to touch on, AFTO also conducted a comprehensive review and update of microbiology prerequisite e-learning modules, which helped ensure foundational training remains scientifically current and instructionally sound, which is so important. And I just want to say these accomplishments could not have been possible without the continued trust, collaboration, and truly shared commitment of AFTO and our SLTT stakeholders. Next slide, please. And as I conclude, I just want to recognize and say that we truly are committed to this vital partnership. It really is a joint effort to ensure the consistent competency-based training will create a stronger national integrated food safety system. And we are all in this together. And so I would welcome any feedback now or after this call. We are dedicated and transparent to any feedback you have and wanting to continue to work together. So I left my information, my email. Please feel free to reach out anytime. And thank you so much for your partnership. At this time, I am going to turn it over to Erik Mettler, Assistant Commissioner for Integrated Food Safety Systems Partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. And I'm glad you can get my title right, because I can't get it right half the time. It's seems to be changing, and it's a very long bit at the end
I got your back, Erik.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just thank you guys for joining. Happy to be here with you. I'm going to keep my comments brief, just so we can get into more of the budget aspect of everything that we're doing. Couple things I did want to address. I know that Kyle spoke to everyone earlier today, and he did raise the discussion around the routine inspections. The routine inspections and sort of the transferring over to the states, we will be out there, at least I will, and Anna Oxenham will be out in Dallas on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday to sort of meet with you and sort of answer all your questions. So just, if we could sort of hold those questions until then, but it's a really big deal and it's going to take quite a bit of time for us to really sort of get through the process. One thing I just wanted to say is that we are not going to do it in an independent silo. We will be working with all of you going forward. So please just keep that in mind that we need your help, your support, and we will not be doing this independently. Overarching, one of the things I do think that everyone is very acutely aware, and both Michelle and Wendy are going to go into it, is the funding reductions in FY25. Unfortunately, to our knowledge, that is still staying in place with the reduction of about 33 million across the board. That being said, we do know that this is not, please know that we're not taking it lightly by any means. We're trying to work with everyone to see how we can, do this as efficient as possible and with as much humility as possible going forward during all of this. We do know, and I think this is a very key thing, that these budget impacts for this year are going to be long lasting. It's not like we can turn on and off the switch. So please hang in there with us. We will get through this. It is to note, I do want to note though, that we are pretty encouraged by the president's budget that went forward that actually gives us an additional 33 million that gets us back up whole for FY26. I know that unfortunately it's a little late for that, and we're going to have a gap year in there. So again, during the course of the FY25, please, or FY26 going forward, please work with us in any way possible that we can help alleviate or at least mitigate some of these burdens that everyone is going to be feeling across the board. In addition to that, I do know that there have been a lot of issues with delays and no votes. And again, the administration has sort of been, coming in hot and heavy. We're finally getting to a state.
Eric, we seem to have lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Now again. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So going back to the really sort of the change in administration. I did want to note that the administration is finally settling in and things are calming down. And so even with, the implementation actually taking Kyle and putting him in a permanent position, we've already seen significant impacts just across the board. So we are starting to see things move both from a contractual standpoint as well as the NOFOs. Some are still lagging, but they are moving forward. So we do start expecting to get a lot of relief in here and really the entire process nailed down. So hopefully these awards will go out fairly quickly here and you guys can all see them. So again, just across the board, please hang with us. And I will turn it over to both Wendy and Michelle to go through a deeper dive into ODP.
All right, thanks, Eric, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the FDA Office of Integrated Food Safety System Partnerships Updates presentation. I'm going to be co-presenting today alongside Wendy Campbell, who is the Division Director in the FDA's Office of Domestic Partnerships, Division of Domestic Partnership Investments. And as Steve mentioned earlier, I am Michelle Motsinger, the Acting Office Director for FDA's Office of Domestic Partnerships. So FDA is still settling in after the October 1st, 2024 reorganization, which is the largest in the agency's history. And the reorganization established a human foods program with one decision maker in the field organization focused on inspections, investigations, and imports. And this reorganization has really impacted many parts of the organization, and we're still trying to adjust to this new structure. So just to kind of go over our mission and vision for the Human Foods Program, our mission is protecting and promoting the health and wellness of all people. The vision for our program is food as a vehicle for wellness, which mirrors the focus of the Make America Healthy Again directive. The next slide. So just a quick disclaimer, this presentation describes current thinking and strategic plans regarding IFSSP's contracting grant programs. And the information provided is certainly subject to change. However, your feedback is encouraged and will be utilized to shape future funding opportunities. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Wendy to kind of get a little bit more into the details.
So thank you, Michelle. So just to give everyone an overview, in Office Domestic Partnerships, we really try to take a very holistic funding approach. We want to fund every partner that has a role in food safety, whether that's starting with the produce farms, with on-farm inspections and the outreach and education for the farms, to manufactured foods, to retail food, laboratory, emergency response. And so we do a combination of contracts and cooperative agreements. We do most of our awards going directly to state and local regulatory agencies, but we also have very strong collaborations with our regulatory association partners. And so really it is that collaboration and broad approach that I think makes us very successful with our programs. And I want to say it's really the work that you all do that makes our program so successful. So thank you just for your continued partnership and collaboration. And especially this year, it's been very challenging. So just thank you for remaining with us. And you'll hear many times we use the term flexible funding model for our programs. We're going to have to start thinking of a new term there, but we really developed that to try to meet the needs for every program that we have based upon their program size, based upon what their objectives may be, and also trying to streamline our funding mechanisms. So for example, with the laboratory flexible funding model, we have tracks for human food testing, animal food testing, chem, micro, rat health, food defense. You think of it, there's probably an option for it under the lab flexible funding model. And so where we can streamline and help to reduce that administrative burden with our funding vehicles, that's what we're trying to do. And that's going to be really a main focus for us this fiscal year and next fiscal year as well. We want to minimize the administrative burden so that you can utilize the funds to really have the biggest public health impact and the best benefit to your program, while at the same time still giving us the critical data that we need to be able to show the return on value of the programs. So we're really going to be focused a lot on that and how can we reduce duplication. We hear that frequently, is that we're asking for a lot of the same data multiple ways or different formats or different systems. And so that's really going to be a priority for this coming year of how do we reduce that administrative burden and maximize the funds that we have available. So as you can see, this gives a brief history of what the federal state initiatives, or what I refer to as the FSI budget, has been. And see, for many fiscal years, we were relatively stable at about 116.3 million. And then in FY25, unfortunately, it looks like our FSI budget is going to be 83 million. And that's been a very difficult challenge for us to, been very challenging to implement. And really, it's just really due to your partnership and your flexibility. There, we've had to have a lot of tough conversations and work through how do we best implement these budget reductions with having them minimizing the impact to everyone. So again, just thank you for continuing to participate and be our partners in these programs. So in order to make that reduction, and I'll go back and say one other point is, even though the budget was 116.3 million, we know that the needs that we have are really much greater. And so we've really estimated probably closer to about 140 million would allow us to fully fund our current portfolio. So as you can imagine, going from 116 down to 83 million, that was extremely challenging. So to do that, we wanted to be as fair as we possibly could. We also wanted to make sure we were making decisions that would have the best public health impact. So we used a two-step prioritization model to do that. First, we did the prioritization looking at the program level. So for example, the manufactured foods flexible funding model cooperative agreement versus, say, the state produce implementation cooperative agreement versus food shield. We try to rank at the program level. And we did have some programs that have multiple objectives, such as the state produce cooperative agreement, where there is inspections and regulatory work, as well as outreach, education, and inventory. And in those cases, we actually would separate out those major objectives in those programs and go through and use the scoring tool then. Then once that was done, we went through and looked at each individual award and tried to do a little bit of trying to determine how to help prioritize those programs as well. Again, the prioritization model, it was used as a guide and it was used to help make decisions, but it just really served as a really good tool for us. It wasn't the final, it was not used to make the final decisions though. Some of the criteria that we looked at whether the program was doing direct risk mitigation and data sharing. So that would be our contract inspection programs or the inspections being done under the state produce cooperative agreement or the sample analyses occurring under lab flexible funding model. We also looked at high risk commodities. For example, produce and retail, we considered those to be the two highest risk. Capacity building and oversight extension. A lot of times those were our programs looking at implementation of the regulatory program standards, or those with our association partners that really provide that training and holistic program support that we need for our individual state awards. We looked at, is this work that FDA could assume if we're not able to make the contract or the grant award? And we also looked at market share, and that really had a lot more applicability at the awardee level. Then as we went through, other things that we considered is sometimes there's just a minimum level of funding that's required for a program, and below that, the program really has to be discontinued. We also wanted to make sure that we provided the funding needed for key grant positions, so such as the MIFRIPS coordinator or key state produce inspectors, making sure, again, trying to support those direct risk mitigation activities. And we'll note, this did not apply for the animal food. There is separate funding streams for human food and animal food. So this prioritization model, it was primarily applied to our human food programs. So where we ended is with the state contracts, there was no reductions that were made due to the funding. And as you can see here, we continue to heavily rely upon the state contract inspections. They continue to represent about 50% of FDA's domestic inspections. We also know this is kind of like the tip of the iceberg of all the work that states perform. And here, just to give an idea of some trends that we are seeing in the human food contract program, the funding for the contract is staying relatively stable, around 13 to 13.6 million. We're anticipating for this fiscal year. Still many, many awards to go. Option year contracts have went out. Everything looks, it's progressing well on the contract side. However, you can see by the red line there is that we are seeing a steady decline with the number of inspections being performed. And there's probably multiple reasons for that. I think sometimes there is changes with the firm inventory. We've gotten some feedback from states wanting to reduce the number of inspections for a variety of reasons. In some cases, FDA is wanting to perform more inspections. But another reason for that is that we're seeing states take on more of the full scope PC inspections. And those inspections, of course, take a lot more time to do than the limited scope PC inspections. So you can see from this graph is that really we've seen a pretty good increase with the full scope PC inspections and the decline with the limited scope PC inspections. And then with our other categories, the seafood HACCP, juice HACCP, those are remaining relatively stable at about plus or minus 10%. And then we still have a few programs that are doing dietary supplement inspections. So we're anticipating about 30 inspections there this year. So FY26, there will be a new request for proposals for both the human and the animal food contract programs. So that is when we have to kind of start over, if you will, have you submit a whole new contract proposal, hopefully also including option years in your proposal. We all remember FY23, that was a very challenging fiscal year for us, and many of the contracts had to be issued as undefinitized. We are going to do everything we can to avoid that occurring in FY26. So we're hoping to have an earlier posting of the food contract. We've also been doing a lot of work with AFTO and with Lori Holmquist and OII to develop an inspection report template. And our hope is that that can reduce your reporting time, make it clearer what the expectations are for the inspection. And that way we also minimize the back and forth, you having an inspection report returned. So that should be getting piloted over the next couple of weeks. There's been 5 or 6 states that's been part of that work group, hoping that those will be our initial ones to do the pilot, give us some feedback, and then we'll include that template in next year's RFP. And it will be used, it will be optional, but it will give you an idea of kind of what we're looking for with the reporting requirements. So again, just a special thanks to AFTO, the states that participated, and to Lori for that collaboration there. We're also looking to see how can we make the contract proposal requirements clearer, having a checklist of all the documents that you need. For example, we need to improve the cost estimate template that was provided a few years back, making sure that that is accurate. So our goal is to be able to get a contract proposal, get it reviewed, hopefully be able to make the award without having to go back and ask for any questions, changes, clarification. We get one complete package and we can move forward and make the award very quickly. We also want to be able to provide FDA and your state average inspection time so that way you have a point of reference when submitting your cost proposal. And then we're also looking at ways to be able to track any changes. For example, so you know that we've went to the one line item model now. So instead of having separate line items for each type of inspection, all the funds are put under one line item. But there is also what's we anticipate that the work that you'll be performing, and to make changes that has required core technical direction. So we're developing a tracking spreadsheet so that core technical direction hopefully will not be required next fiscal year. We've done a lot looking at some other funding mechanisms. As many of you know, we looked very heavily at if we can transition to a cooperative agreement. Fortunately, we'll not be able to do that for FY26. We continue to explore that idea though, and the other approach that we've been looking at is what's referred to as other transactional authority. And we have submitted another A19 proposal for that. Our hope is that we'd be able to combine really the contracts and the cooperative agreements into one funding model and to streamline that for you. And then we also want to look at how can we leverage better full conformance with the regulatory program standards to meet the contract requirements. We're still really brainstorming in very early discussions there, but we have majority of states, especially on the human food side, that's in full conformance with the standards. So how can we leverage that and say that this demonstrates quality oversight and can reduce some of the administrative burden that we have on our contracts? And then this just gives a summary of how the reductions did occur for FY25. For example, you can see within the state produce program, there was a reduction of about 8 million there. That was primarily for outreach, education, and the inventory development work, while we were also trying to maintain the funding for the inspections. On the laboratory side, those awards are in process right now. For this year's awards, the priority will be on sample analyses occurring as well as whole genome sequencing. Within human food programs, there was a pretty large reduction that had to be made across all of those programs. MIFRIPS, which also includes Food Protection Task Force, are the sub-award programs for grade A dairy and shellfish, egg standards, and the Alliance Cooperative Agreement. And you can also see with RRT, and unfortunately, one of the largest areas that we had to make a reduction was with the data management and sharing, which included not being able to continue funding for SAFER this year. We definitely continue to advocate and explore ways that we can support SAFER. It's absolutely an incredible program that's very needed in order for us all to be able to do our work effectively. Just unfortunately, with the budget, we were not able to continue the funding this fiscal year. See. And one thing that we do want to do is, as I mentioned before, is really trying to maximize the funds that we are providing to you. And so that was an effort that we've made this year with the budget reductions that we had to put in place, is that we're giving the opportunity for you to pursue the work that you felt had the highest public health impact and the highest benefit to your program, while also trying to reduce the administrative burden. So we've eliminated the mid-year reports. We're also looking to reduce other monitoring and reporting requirements, while also still trying to identify the key metrics so we can demonstrate the public health impact of these programs, because that's what allows us to advocate and show why we need to continue to invest in these programs. And Shel, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Okay, so this is just, as you can see, a really nice holistic view of all of our regulatory program standards and rapid response teams enrollment, along with states that are participating in the Food Protection Task Force and the Produce Regulatory Program Standards Pilot, and then also our partnership agreements. So just kind of to give you a little bit of an idea of where we are with enrollment and conformance as of July 1st, 2025, which I recognize is in just a couple of weeks. So this is kind of forecasting a little into the future. For MFRPS, we have 39 enrolled programs with 38 that are in full conformance. For the animal food standards, we have 25 enrolled with 23 in full implementation. And then for the egg standards, there are 2 enrolled programs. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more later in this presentation about the produce regulatory program standards pilot, but just to give you a little bit of an overview of that program, we have 9 enrolled states, plus something that is exciting this year is that we've been able to add in FDA's Office of Inspections and Investigations. They will be participating. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then for RRT, we have 24 enrolled and 2 voluntary. The 2 voluntary are New York and North Carolina. Those are unfunded. And then we have multiple partnership agreements, which are focused on domestic neutral alliance. We have 10 that are established, 3 developmental, and then 2 specialized. And for the Food Protection Task Force, we have 22 total enrolled. There are 17 that are voluntary. And we will go on to the next slide. So this is just a little bit more of an in-depth overview of the manufactured food regulatory program standards. Again, as I mentioned, 39 enrolled with 38 in full conformance. This year, the MIFRIPS grants management team has really been actively meeting with all of our state programs, and we are on target to meet with all of them by the end of the calendar year. And as Wendy mentioned, even with, the funding complexities this year, we have approximately 39 programs that remain enrolled in the MFRPS with, again, 38 in full conformance. So that's really great news. Just want to thank the states for staying the course during these uncertain times and maintaining all the work achieved over the last 10 years. We really, really do truly appreciate and value your partnership. And again, the MIFRIPS is a foundation for an integrated food safety system, and this is definitely not achievable without the great work of the states and the standards program that has helped provide that strong framework for state food safety laws, staff training, inspections, compliance and enforcement, and laboratory, and so many others. So go to the next slide. So for the manufactured food flexible funding model, we are looking at some potential projected changes in the future here. We expect states to achieve and maintain conformance with the manufactured food regulatory program standards, and we are going to be adding in a domestic mutual alliance track for those states in a maintenance phase. That track may include things such as two-way data sharing, which may include non-contract regulatory data such as inspections, enforcement actions, and complaints. It may include inventory management and reconciliation, and then comprehensive work planning. We're also looking to include the Food Protection Task Force, dietary supplements, and special projects as optional tracks. Go to the next slide. So just a quick overview of our domestic mutual alliance partnership agreements. I mentioned earlier, we have 10 established, 3 developmental, and 2 specialized. With recent funding and resource challenges, we have begun some conversations with our states and divisions that have entered into these partnership agreements to determine if a pause or a reduction in activities is needed. This will be determined on a state-by-state basis based on current priorities and capabilities and available resources, so that those conversations are still ongoing and kind of to still be determined. So next slide. And then just a quick overview of the Rapid Response Team's cooperative agreement. Again, we have 24 enrolled with 2 voluntary RRTs. There are 4 new states to the RRT cap in the 24 to 25 grant cycle. Those include Arizona, Arkansas, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. And again, we'll move on to the next slide. Just want to highlight some of the projected changes for the RRT program. We are currently looking at innovative approaches to support the Make America Healthy Again and Make Our Children Healthy Again initiatives to reduce long-term implications of foodborne illness or exposure to other contaminants. Wendy, next slide. And then just a few other projected changes. There will be some new options with requirements to complete at least 1 prevention project. The RRTs will be expected to conduct follow-ups to samples collected under the lab flexible funding model. And there will also be increased points for rapid response teams' effectiveness in the scoring criteria. Those will include RRT activations, produce and environmental sampling, tracebacks, and after action reports, and also joint investigations. Next slide. So I'm gonna get a little bit into produce now. This slide again provides just a nice overview of the FDA state produce safety implementation cooperative agreement participation and then the various program paths. So many of you may be familiar with all the different paths, but I'll go through them really quickly. The path A are those states that are highlighted in yellow. And these grantees are non-regulatory programs where FDA is conducting produce safety inspections in those states. Path B, you can see, is those that are highlighted in blue, and those are grantees in those states that are conducting produce safety inspections under FDA's authority. And then path C is in green, and these grantees conduct produce safety inspections under their own authority. And then finally, those states and territories that are in white are not participating in the CAP, and FDA conducts the produce safety inspections in those states and territories. So move on to the next slide. So again, just some projected changes for the produce program. The program will still support the same primary objectives of conducting regulatory work, inventory, verification, and outreach and education. However, there will be no path A, and we would like states to move into performing regulatory work instead of just performing outreach, education, and inventory verification. Really, the biggest change is giving states an optional track to implement the standards. So track 1 will be as it is now with regulatory work and education, and track 2 will be the voluntary standards implementation track. So next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to talk a little bit about the pilot for the produce standards. There are 9 state produce inspection programs, and then again, the FDA's Office of Inspections and Investigations, the Division of Produce Safety, that are participating in the pilot program to begin implementing portions of the PRPS and provide valuable feedback to not only FDA, but also to NASDA, AFDO, and then also to each other. And these pilot programs are totally voluntary, but really they do offer many benefits. The pilot programs get to kick the tires first. So really they get to try their hands at standards and be leaders in how implementation works with their existing programs. They'll also have access to a focus group of peer pilot programs to collaborate and connect with, and also be able to participate in a mock assessment, which is really neat, I think, and to really just go through a practice assessment, which is a novel benefit as they will get to experience an assessment without a formal outcome before they have their first official assessment. Also, pilot programs will be able to strengthen their existing cooperative agreement outputs. We've really seen a deep interest in the pilots from state produce programs, which is very encouraging as we continue to move towards formal implementation. And these programs are not formally enrolled in the PRPS. They are voluntarily completing the self-assessment and strategic improvement plan elements of the produce standard only. But also then again, like I mentioned earlier, providing valuable feedback on their experiences to other states, the FDA, NASDA, and AFDO, so that we can also continue to build the best supports possible for formal implementation. Pilot programs are completing their work voluntarily again and are not beholden to aspects of programs formally enrolled in standards, including formal assessments by the assessment staff. And the formal enrollment piece is actually not expected to begin until July of 2026, when a new cooperative agreement grant will include produce standards enrollment as an output. Next slide. So what activities are happening during the pilot phase? States will begin to complete a baseline self-assessment for all 10 standards using the self-assessment worksheets and the self-assessment summary reports or equivalent forms. They'll also develop a strategic improvement plan based upon their baseline self-assessment. And the strategic improvement plan, if you're not aware, will outline what parts of the standard they don't currently have in place in their programs and what their plans are to meet in the future. So like the who, what, when, and how type piece. And then finally, they will provide input, data, and feedback about these processes to, again, FDA, NASDA, AFDA, and other pilot programs. So I'll move on to the next slide. And then just quickly a little bit about the Produce Regulatory Program Standards Alliance. The program is setting up an alliance. The purpose of that group is to serve as a structure for state and territorial produce regulatory programs in the FDA to provide recommendations for improving and maintaining the PRPS and produce regulatory programs within an integrated food safety system. That alliance will also serve as a forum for communication and collaboration to assist state programs in meeting the PRPS and other activities. So if you're at all familiar with the Manufactured Food Regulatory Program Standards Alliance, it's really very similar to that role. Membership consists of 1 voting member from each PRPS state or territorial program. The alliance will also include a governing board with members from each produce region and non-voting board members from the FDA's Office of Domestic Partnerships and Office of Quality Assessment and Management, and then technical advisors to advise on specific issues, and additional non-voting members round out the alliance membership. The group will be formally stood up once PRPS formal enrollment begins, which is not likely, likely during the next cooperative agreement cycle, which starts in July of 2026. Until that time, there is a transition board that's sort of serving in that role until we have the formal stand-up of the standard. So next slide. So what are we doing in the background as we await formal enrollment for eligible programs, the PRPS? Again, trying to just finalize recommendations for the PRPS update process through the Alliance, continuing on with the pilot program with the exciting addition of 5 new state programs. We will be doing additional outreach and education. And then finally, formal official enrollment in the produce standards is expected to occur in the next state produce safety cooperative agreement program. Next slide. Just very quickly, we have had some challenges with OMB submissions and reviews and getting those through the process. So with the rising number of OMB submissions and staffing challenges, combined with the change in administration, which requires a 90-day pause in reviews and processing, the OMB process has become a huge hurdle for us. So this kind of just outlines where we are with each of the standards, which I won't go through because I know we are tight for time. So we'll go on to the next slide. And then just a quick update on the regulatory laboratory training system. The notice of funding opportunity for the National Coordination Center has been sent to HHS for clearance and approval. We are aiming to award in September of 2025. There are multiple subgroups here that are going to be stood up. There's a publication subgroup kickoff, which is scheduled for sometime this month. We are also trying to pilot an online web form for resource submission. IFPTI, APHL, AFDO, NEHA, and FDA are piloting a new submission process that will include a scoring review of training courses, assessing both quality Q scores and competency C scores. Those are supposed to be done by September of 2025. The strategic communications subgroup is launching an RLTS website. And then finally, the market analysis subgroup is conducting focus groups to determine costs associated with providing learning resources for RLTS. So next slide. Just some next steps for RLTS very quickly. We are, there will be a kickoff again to review and update the language in Standard 2 across all of the regulatory program standards sometime this month. The scoring review of training courses assessing both Q score and competency score will be completed. That deadline is set for December of this year. External partners will pilot, test an online web form for resource submission and finalize that form. That deadline is July of this year. And then we have a meeting with CDC and USDA FSIS scheduled sometime this summer. And hopefully, fingers crossed, the award for the NOFO for the National Coordination Center will occur in September. Lots of work being done in the RLTS space. And so I will go ahead and turn it back over to Wendy to wrap this up for us.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. So just very quick, touch a little bit on the Laboratory Flexible Funding Model Cooperative Agreement. We're in year 5. The NOFO for that program closed back in March, and we are currently reviewing the applications. Some major changes there is for the product testing tracks. The ISO laboratory accreditation will be required for participation there. There is no IT infrastructure development track for this year. The maintenance funding, that it will be based upon the number of samples and analysis performed instead of the track participation. And then they made the NARMS testing a separate track from the animal food product testing. We added a couple more options for whole genome sequencing. One can be throughput, where you're doing a lot of the backlog of whole genome sequences, and then or maintenance, where you're looking at the positives that's been derived from lab FFM sample tracks. And then any lab that's selected for food defense product testing or whole genome sequencing, that makes them automatically eligible for capacity, capability development, and method development validation tracks. Again, this year, just with the budget, we will be prioritizing more with the sample analyses, but do hope in future years to be able to expand the funding. So we're currently reviewing the over 50 applications that were received. That's requested over $33 million in funding. Had a couple of review panels today and targeting getting the awards made by mid-August. So the team is working very hard to get these applications reviewed and get the new awards made. And just give a quick update with retail flexible funding model. So this year, that is primarily a subaward program, or what most people are most familiar with is the subaward program. We received over $22.6 million in applications, funds that were requested, and was able to award $5.1 million in funding. And really trying to, again, maximize the impact that we had available. Work was prioritized for working on the retail standards. They reduced the mentee funds and moved more to a virtual meeting, reduced training funds, limited capacity building grants down to 6, and also no special projects were approved this year. And a little bit of the other work that occurs under the retail flexible funding model is understanding the barriers to the retail standards enrollment and supporting continuous progress. They are working to update the self-assessment and verification audit workshops, as well as the online course, supports the mentorship program, as well as the biannual retail program standards symposium. So the status of our awards this year, the contract and grant continuation awards are being processed. Many of you, if you've got the manufactured foods flexible funding model, state producer RRT, may have already received your notice of award. So those have been going through fairly smoothly. So anticipate getting those awards made by July 1st. On the grant side, option year contracts have went out, and a few of those awards have been made as well. And then for our new NOFOs for FY25, we do have some of those that's still pending posting. The Animal Food Regulatory Program Standards, Animal Food Association Egg Standards, the RLTS Training Coordination Center, and Food Shield as well. So many people are making many efforts here to try to get these approved, and so that way we can get them posted and get them awarded this fiscal year. And Steve, Amy, we will turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you all for all of that information. We appreciate all that you do every day, and there's lots going on. I've got a handful of questions. I'm going to start with one that I think multiple people will be interested at. Any changes to how the allocation is going to be made to training seats this year? I think that goes across both groups, so I'm not sure who wants to take the lead on that one.
I'm happy to start. Training seats, can you give me a little bit more on what you're thinking?
I think they're talking manufactured food and produce. I would be guessing that traditionally go through the training workbook method, if I recall correctly. Um, I think particularly with the beginning of the changes in domestic inspections, that's normally been based on inspectional contract assignments has determined the prioritization, particularly manufactured food. So I think that's what they're trying to figure out is as they move into transition, will we reassess how we do those seat assignments? Did I get that right, Carla? And please add more if I need more information.
So Brooke, I can try to answer that and you can sort of tag on to it if you like.
Sure.
All right. I mean, I think the short of it is these are one of those areas that we're gonna have to look at over the course of the coming months, if not years, to really make sure that all the available seats are there for the states that are going to pick up additional work. What we don't want to do is basically purely, flip a switch and basically have states, one, not have the capacity to pick up what we all need them to do, and two, not have the resources, whether it be again FTEs, operational, or the actual training to do it. So as we slowly ramp up states doing more work, we will make sure that those seats are available for folks, and that if that does require looking at a new model for making sure the available seats are there, I think we will definitely do it. I do think we're gonna have to look at a variety of different options though to keep up with the pace that we're going to be looking at through third parties, through training the trainers. All basically, we're going to look at every single modality to make sure that people do have the training that they need to go into it. But I think it's fully dedicated in all of our budget requests and everything else. This is one of the key aspects that we've made over and over again. While inspections are one thing, you can't do inspections without trained folks in there. So basically, we want to make sure that we increase our internal and external capacity for training over the course of the coming years. But I think overarching, if you guys do have trouble, you guys know who to call. Brooke, Wendy, and Michelle are the folks to go to, and we will definitely try to do everything we possibly can to meet the needs that are out there. And I do think, and I am very hopeful, as Brooke said, that training has been frozen to some, or travel has been frozen to some extent. We are actually starting to see that thaw quite a bit now. And so with Kyle and everyone else are being permanent, they're able to push forward and push a little bit harder to make sure that these resources are available for everyone.
And I'll just tag on to that, Eric. Thank you for starting that. One of the things that we're doing actively right now is we're looking at writing a blanket travel exemption as well. And I didn't mention that earlier. And so that would be sort of the next step while we're still driving the train forward with individual exemptions for each individual course. We're also at the same time, parallel track, going to be submitting a blanket statement under a larger umbrella at an agency level because of this problem. And so we can try to unstick, as Eric said as well. But if there are issues or we're not getting slots, please, that's why I'm saying, please come to me. I work very closely with, one of my directors, Daniel Osei, which many of you know. And so we're looking at all of the training survey data to plan for 26. And if we're not meeting your needs, we want to know about it. And we're going to make those accommodations because this is our priority. So if there is something missing or we're having serious slot allocation issues, we need to know now. And we are very interested in partnering with you to get that unstuck. Thank you.
And I just want to say out loud, Brooke, you have a phenomenal team with Daniel and Lori that we work with every day, and they are very responsive. Whenever there's a question, they answer quickly, and we appreciate that. And I know our state and local counterparts appreciate that. So just want to thank you for the wonderful staff and the responsiveness. I know we all appreciate it. Wendy, I think this goes to you and Michelle next, maybe. The next question I'm going to ask is for the MIFRS program. What does prioritizing mutual reliance mean or look like? Is there likely to be an increase or decrease in funds available based on the level of mutual reliance and the level of engagement states have with FDA?
We are hoping to increase the funding under the manufactured foods flexible funding model next year. And as Eric mentioned, we're looking at being able to return back to the $116.3 million budget that we've had in previous fiscal years, and definitely recognize that additional funding will be required. So we are hoping some of the objectives that we're thinking for the new MIFRIPS NOFO. So would love, please stop by, come see Michelle, and we'd love your feedback there about some of the ideas we're thinking for the new NOFO, but really looking at how do we need more comprehensive work planning, not just work planning for the contract, but also non-contract inspections, looking at the entire work plan and being able to better coordinate resources between FDA and state. Also looking at more data sharing and understanding that may also require IT solutions to be able to do that effectively. Also thinking about inventory management and reconciliation. That has been a challenge for us, as Steve, you know. So how can we better improve that and better leverage the state data so that we're not assigning firms that, that are out of business? So how can we improve those efforts? So we don't have a firm number of what the award ceilings will be. We're still working on the NOFO to figure out what the appropriate funding tiers will be, the direction that we're wanting to go with the next NOFO.
Well, Wendy, I'm not sure what happened, but Carter and Cleveland really were excited about what you were talking about.
Oh, good.
So they think it's exciting. I don't know whether that's a good or bad thing, but they were very excited. So you probably heard them. Let me see. I see another question. Brooke, the FD215 inspector game, where is that available and how do people get to it?
So that has not been publicly, launched yet. It is going to be coming very soon and will be announced through my staff, Daniel and Lori. So it is going to be, it's really based on gamification. It's very interesting. And I think meets a lot of those, younger gen learners, interests. So more to come. You should be getting your hands on that in the coming weeks, and I will make sure everyone on this call has access.
Great. Um, uh, Wendy and Michelle, I think this one goes to you. The reports that are being developed for the report template that's being developed, that is human food only at this point. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That was my understanding. Yeah, so that's an easy one. We got that one answered. Thank you for that question. Then let's go on to the mid-year reports are no longer required for both human and animal food. Is that correct?
For MIFRIPS, RRT, the AFRIPS, that is one of the NOFOs that is pending posting, and so no decision's been made on the reporting requirements there. I do
Okay.
anticipate probably the mid-year report would be required for that program. We added a lot more objectives into the new AFRIPS NOFO that are related kind of again to that mutual alliance. States performing the non-contract inspections, the inventory management, that greater data sharing. So since that has a lot of new objectives, we would still do a mid-year report for the AFRIPS NOFO next year, or cooperative agreement.
One person is asking, what is the anticipated NOFO amount for the NCC with the September award, if you can talk about it?
Sure. We were estimating about 1.75 million with the NOFO. That is the award ceiling that we have estimated, but of course that's based upon availability of FY25 funds.
Okay. Okay, we understand other states are able to count FDA inspections to count as inspections that meet state programs. Do many states do this? And we are wondering how many other states have implemented this. Um, Tessa, I will get you an answer on that. That's probably not something that the FDA folks can do, but I know Pat's on the call and we'll work on getting you, but it is quite common. And it's actually quite common also that states use FDA inspections in lieu of their own inspections and vice versa. Both have become very common in the last number of years. We'll get you some additional information about that. So
Steve,
we
just to build on that, we do hope that that becomes even more common and it's just sort of universal across the board. And I think that is really sort of what we're planning on as we walk into this new inspection model in future years.
Wendy, just so people know, the grant cycle on MIFRIPS RRT and food protection task forces, wherever they are put, is next year a new application year for those two, or is it one more
It
year
is.
away? Next year's a new application.
Next year will be a new application, so definitely would love to get the feedback on the notice of funding opportunity that we're developing. It will be due to OAGs at the end of September.
Okay. And of course, the hope would be that those get posted very quickly and happen and move somewhat in more of a normal cycle going forward.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, sorry. I know that you don't have to speak for it. We all hope that. And we know you do. Just out of curiosity, I know you mentioned that some of the cooperative agreements that are scheduled for a new application this year are hung up in the process. Are you hearing anything back on the process? That might be an Erik question. Are we getting any sort of feedback that they might be getting loosened somewhere, or what?
Yeah, no, as I think Kyle said in the previous call, he's been shaking some trees or not. I think he's actually been more than kicking the trees,
Okay.
and things are starting to fall out. So he, good thing about having him permanent is he's very good connections across the board, and he's able to shake it where we need and get it loose. So I would say that they are coming very quickly here. I can't give you an exact date, but I do think we will meet the deadlines. It's going to be very close on the back end for all of us, but I do think we'll be able to get them out on time. I'm getting more and more confident as the hours go by here.
Yep. And one other thing to note for programs that will have an application due, it'll likely be a shortened 30-day
It will be.
time frame for your new
Mhm.
application. So that means you should probably be writing now or have a pretty good draft and then
Mhm.
respond to the specific NOFO when it comes out versus waiting because it will be a really short turnaround time. And also prepare for those of you that might have long internal times. This is going to have to be expedited in
Mhm.
order to move forward. So just
Yeah.
prepare accordingly if you're one of those programs that. So for new
Yes.
applications, that primarily from the program standpoint affects animal food program standards. Correct, Wendy?
It does. And I will make the plug as well, making sure that you have all of your accounts, you're registered for everything, and be ready to submit the application because a lot of times it can take 30 days to get your accounts.
Excellent. So lots of pieces to that puzzle, as we know. I'm seeing a few things in chat where people are talking to each other. That's wonderful. I'm going to kind of end with one last question. From the state and local perspective, I'm going to ask this of both Brooke and Erik, and I'm sure Wendy and Michelle might have additional feedback on this. What do you see as the most exciting thing happening over the next year, the opportunity you're really looking forward to? And Brooke, do you want to start? And then we'll move to Erik.
Sure. I think there's a real opportunity for innovation and creativity. We're in a phase where we're really able to kind of rebuild ourselves in many ways, and we're taking that as a signal that it's a great opportunity. Our portfolio of work has shifted quite a bit with some of the changes we've encountered over the last several months, and I think it's an opportunity to get really laser focused on what we're good at. I think it's an opportunity for us to really scale out some of the things we're doing. We are looking at offering more and more and offering train the trainer programs because we can't deliver everything ourselves. And so we're looking at more options to scale that out, but also modernizing training. We traditionally had, in-person deliveries and week-long courses, et cetera. And we're looking at microlearning. We're looking at VR AI. We're looking at podcasts. We're looking at doing things differently because our, generation coming in want things rapid fire. They want the knowledge. They want it on the go. And so really trying to look at trending best practices in private and public industry is where we are focusing our time and effort so we can maximize our training for all of our partners. So that's what I think is the most exciting right now.
Absolutely. And once again, thank you for all you've been doing at OTED. You've done a great job. Erik. Oh, we can't hear you again.
Hey, now, maybe?
Yep.
I feel like I'm like Alan Tart. He left me his computer, so I have to keep smacking it and going forward. Anyway, so I think there's two areas. One, I think with the adoption of AI technology, I think that is going to be huge across the board, and it's really going to sort of reinvigorate the using of data, and that's really going to encourage all of us to share all of our data so we can get it and put it in one specific area. So I think that piece alone has the attention of pretty much the entire administration. So it's going to get a lot of effort and a huge push both in FDA and outside. So that would be one area I'm looking forward to. Probably the most exciting and I think the most scary at the same time is this sort of push to go to the routine inspections and relying more on the date, more on the states just across the board. We've talked about an integrated food safety system for the past, several years, decades. This is it. This is our one huge shot to get it right. We have an administration that's backing it. We have an opportunity to actually get more resources here. We have to do it right. We have to make sure that we're very, calculated in how we go about doing this. We have to make sure that going across the board, we pull everyone into the discussion and make sure that we can really sort of build it out completely. But I'll tell you, this is it. In our lifetime, in our work career time, to get an integrated food safety system in place, it's now. It is starting now. So we're going to be looking forward to working with all of you to really make this happen and make sure that we change the system for a very, very long time and really sort of capture and implement what we've envisioned for the last 3 decades or more.
It's very exciting times. Once again, we want to thank you all. For those of you that haven't signed up, your opportunity to visit with Michelle and Wendy in person over the weekend on Sunday at the conference. Please sign up for those opportunities. I will tell you that at another meeting I do in the medical products community, this is the most sought after thing. And I've seen people literally come for the registration just to have time to sit down with the key folks. So I would definitely be taking advantage of it. And there are only a handful of sessions left. So get signed up today if you'd like to have an opportunity to talk about those future models, talk more about what any particular funding challenges you all have, or how things work, reporting, and all of those sort of things. You've got the people that you need to talk to in the room. So definitely take advantage of that. And we appreciate Wendy and Michelle being willing to do that. We also appreciate them letting us be creative on how we promote it with the little graphic we did there. For those of you that are old enough, you might remember that from Peanuts or Snoopy's discussions. There was an Ask the Doctor booth. And so that kind of got recreated in this. And we appreciate their willingness for us to be creative. And of course,
I like how you put the free part in there. I don't remember the free. But...
well, we did want to. 5 cents was originally there, but we had to get rid of that. We didn't want to create any misperceptions. So we thought that could create a conflict, so we had to redo it. But I will also say Jason Brill learned a whole lot with Copilot, OpenAI, and other things. This was entirely done with artificial intelligence. So it was an interesting 45-minute endeavor on Jason's part, but we came up with something that we think is pretty cool. So just just fun to do those unique things. We want to once again thank Erik, Wendy, Michelle, the whole team at the Office of Partnerships. We know that they work every day to assist all of our programs at the state and local level, and they do a very great job. And I will also say, in challenging times, they have done their best to find the most efficient manners of using the funds that had the greatest benefit to the public health system going forward. So we do appreciate their commitment there. I will note Erik, Wendy, and Michelle will all be present in person next week. For those of you that are in person, definitely take time to get to know them. We do appreciate that FDA was willing to approve a handful, about 20 FDAers, it looks like, will be present in person. We think as of today. So that's awesome. We appreciate that. And we're very excited to see you all. Once again, thank you to both Erik and Brooke and the whole teams and all your staff that aren't with us. We know they do great work. And also, I will also note, I'll say this publicly, and the whole staff over at OEGS that we also work with nearly every day and we know that they have a lot going on and very, very, very few people to do it. So we appreciate their willingness. I know many folks were relieved earlier this week when they started seeing award announcements coming out. I won't tell you how many text messages I received very early that morning, but there were a lot, and they were very excited to see those start coming out and felt a whole lot of relief. So that's a great piece of the puzzle. With that, once again, thank you to everyone. Thank you all for joining us. The recording will be made available later this week. So we do appreciate, once again, the permission to do a recording on this. And thank you all for joining us and actually making it go longer than expected. Again, the panel, thank you for joining us a little longer than we had anticipated. We'll see many of you next week. Thank you.